some westerns are remembered, but the Outlaw Josey Wales still hits like a bullet. 50 years later, this is still one of those films people stop and watch whenever it comes on. Maybe it is the scar on Josey's face, maybe it is Lone Watie's dry humor, or maybe it is because this was never just a revenge western. It was a story about grief, survival, and wounded people somehow finding their way back to life. So tonight, we are looking back at the cast who gave this classic its grit, its warmth, and its soul, and where time took them after the ride was over. There is only one place to begin, and that is with Clint Eastwood as Josey Wales. For most people, Josey Wales begins with loss. We remember the burned farm, the murdered wife and child, and the saber scar that stayed on his face like a permanent mark of what had been taken from him. Clint Eastwood gave that pain a hard, unforgettable shape. He did not play Josey as a man shouting his grief to the world. He played him as someone carrying it quietly, as if the sorrow had settled so deep inside him, it had become part of the way he moved, looked, and even breathed. By 1976, Eastwood was already a major star, but this role let him do something richer than simple toughness. Josey was dangerous, but he was also tired, wounded, and strangely human. He could spit tobacco juice, ride into gunfire with a pistol in each hand, and still make you feel that underneath all of it was a man who had already died a little and kept going anyway. Eastwood also took over directing the film himself, and you can feel his hand in every frame. The film is lean, quiet, unsentimental, and yet full of feeling under the surface. Over the years, he became more than a movie star. He became one of the great American screen legends. But for many viewers, one of the faces they still see first is that scarred, silent man, riding through dust with revenge and sorrow in equal measure. If Eastwood gave the film its wound, then Chief Dan George as Lone Watie gave it its soul. A lot of people still remember Lone Watie more vividly than almost anyone else in the film, and it is easy to understand why. He had that rare gift of making every line feel like it had lived somewhere before it reached the screen. His humor was dry, patient, and perfect. I didn't surrender, but they took my horse and made him surrender. It's not for eating, it's just for looking through. And of course, after Josey says he counted on him to handle the man on the far right, there is that perfect pause before Lone Watie says, "But I could have missed him." Chief Dan George brought far more than clever timing to the role. He brought age, dignity, memory, and a lived understanding of loss. That is why Lone Watie never feels like a stock character. He feels like a man who has seen governments lie, seen worlds disappear, and learned to answer all of it with wit instead of self-pity. Off-screen, Dan George was also a respected Indigenous leader, writer, and speaker, and that deeper truth seems to sit inside the performance. He passed away in 1981, but he remains one of the warmest and wisest presences in any Clint Eastwood film. Then there was Sondra Locke as Laura Lee, who softened the film without ever weakening it. What people often remember about Laura Lee is not a single line, but the contrast she brings. In a world of dust, grief, and hard men carrying old wounds, she enters as a reminder of gentleness, fear, trust, and the possibility of tenderness. Little by little, Laura Lee becomes part of the makeshift family forming around Josey, and that changes the emotional direction of the story. The film stops being only about revenge and starts becoming about what might still be worth protecting. One of the small details many viewers still hold on to is the watch chain she braids for Josey from her own hair. It is quiet, intimate, and deeply human. In a film full of blood and bitterness, that small act of care says more than a speech ever could. Sondra Locke had a delicate screen presence, but there was something firm beneath it, and that is what made Laura Lee work. Her life later became tangled in one of Hollywood's most painful personal and professional battles, after her long relationship with Eastwood ended in lawsuits and lasting hurt. She passed away in 2018, and looking back at her now carries a sadness, because the talent was there and should have had more room to grow. Then the film opens its heart even further with Sam Bottoms as Jamie. Jamie is the reason the story does not remain only a revenge picture. He feels like the son Josey lost, and that is exactly why he matters. His youth, loyalty, and openness stir something fatherly in Josey that all the violence in the film cannot bury. A lot of viewers remember Jamie through the details that make him feel real. The way he tries to stay brave. The way he talks about his father sewing flowers into his undershirt while singing The Rose of Alabama, and the way he says he is proud to have ridden with Josey. Sam Bottoms was only around 20 when he made the film, and he had the kind of face audiences want to protect, yet he never played Jamie as weak. He played him as sincere, and that sincerity gives the role its hold on the story. When Jamie dies, something in Josey changes, and something in the audience does too. Bottoms later appeared in films like Apocalypse Now, but Jamie remains one of those roles that lingers because it feels like a young life interrupted too soon. Bottoms himself passed away in 2008 at just 53, which only deepens that feeling when people return to this performance now. And then comes one of the film's great towering presences, Will Sampson as 10 Bears. Will Sampson did not need many words to dominate a scene. His size, stillness, and authority did much of the work before he ever spoke. What viewers remember most is the negotiation with Josey, one of the most powerful moments in the entire film. Instead of a shootout, the story gives us two men marked by loss, trying to decide whether words can still mean anything in a world built on broken promises. That exchange about words of life, words of death, and the iron in a man's word lifts the film into something larger than vengeance. 10 Bears reminds us that this land is full of wounds, not just Josey's. Will Sampson brought dignity and gravity to every moment, and he helped the film move away from old Western stereotypes towards something more human. He later became a powerful advocate for authentic Native representation in Hollywood. He passed away in 1987 at only 53, but his presence in this film still feels immense. Before we go on, I would love to know this. Which character from the Outlaw Josey Wales has stayed with you the longest over the years? And if there is one line from the film you can still hear in your head right now, leave it in the comments. If this is bringing back memories, please like the video and share it with someone who still remembers this Western the way you do. Next comes Geraldine Keams as Little Moonlight, one of the film's quiet surprises. Little Moonlight stays in memory because the film never lets her pain feel decorative. The scar on her face tells you immediately that she has already lived through cruelty and humiliation, but what makes her unforgettable is that she refuses to disappear into that pain. Once Josey rescues her, she does not become a silent background. She keeps speaking, keeps watching, and keeps showing a stubborn spirit. That is why the click hello moment with lone Watie is so memorable. It is funny, but it also reveals strength. Geraldine Keams brought authenticity and inner life to the role. And even now, Little Moonlight feels more like a real survivor than a Western type. Then there is John Vernon as Captain Fletcher, one of the film's most layered men. Fletcher is not a simple villain. He is a man worn down by compromise, by war, and by the shame of serving people he no longer fully believes in. John Vernon played that weariness beautifully. His voice gave him authority, but what matters here is the conflict under it. By the time he reaches Josey in the final saloon scene, he chooses not to drag him back into death. He lets the lie stand, and that quiet act gives the ending much of its grace. Vernon became famous in many other roles, but for those who love this film, Fletcher remains one of his most human performances. If Fletcher carries regret, then Bill McKinney as Captain Terrell carries the cruelty that started everything. Terrell is the wound at the root of the story. He is the man tied to the slaughter of Josey's family, the burned farm, the scar, and the betrayal that turned grief into vengeance. Bill McKinney had a frightening ability to make violence feel natural on screen, and that made him exactly right for Terrell. What makes the character especially chilling is that he sees himself as righteous. By the time Josey finally corners him, the audience is not simply watching a showdown. They are watching a man face the source of his worst memory. McKinney's performance gives the film an enemy worthy of the pain it carries. Then comes Matt Clark as Kelly, and with him, the film finds a different kind of strength. Kelly is the bartender in a town that already feels half-finished, half-abandoned, and almost out of life. Matt Clark had one of those faces that always made a Western feel more believable. He did not need to do much. He simply seemed to belong there. As the town slowly comes back to life around Josey, Kelly becomes part of that shift. By the end, when he helps protect Josey's new identity and calls him Mr. Wilson, he becomes part of the quiet mercy that lets the story close in peace rather than blood. Clark was one of those great supporting actors whose presence gave films their texture, and real fans of this movie absolutely remember him. After that comes Sheb Wooley as Travis Cobb, a man who brought old Western authenticity with him the moment he appeared. Wooley felt like someone who had not stepped into the Western world, so much has grown out of it. Viewers remember the fiddle, the rough humor, and especially that harsh image of him buried up to the neck. His role helps push the story toward negotiation rather than slaughter, which matters more than it may seem. Off-screen, Wooley's career stretched across music, television, and film, and he remains tied to Western culture in a way few performers do. That lived-in truth is part of why Travis Cobb still feels so right in this film. And finally, there is Royal Dano as Ten Spot, one of the old faces of American cinema that could leave an impression almost instantly. Royal Dano had that weathered, haunted look that seemed to carry years all by itself. As Ten Spot, he belongs to the fading town where silver, crowds, and certainty have all run out. Yet he becomes part of the final quiet conspiracy that lets Josey survive under another name. Ten Spot matters because he helps turn the ending into something gentler than mere escape. He helps lay an old ghost to rest. Dano spent a long career adding depth, strangeness, and melancholy to the edges of films. And that is exactly what he does here.